What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. And today is January the 26th, 2022. We made it this far. But if it's January 26th, then that can only mean one thing. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Cole says it better, but I'll say it also. Today is Boss Day, the day of the legit boss, the standard bearer, the blueprint, Sasha Banks, with all the nicknames. And in honor of that, I am wearing blue. Of course, I'm also wearing red because at first she was red, and then when she came back after SummerSlam 2019 and shocked us all with her heel turn at the time, she went blue. And fits her perfectly now that she's on SmackDown. If she ever gets drafted to Raw again, she'll probably go back to red. But either way, we're wearing the colors today. What the heck? But today is Sasha Banks' birthday, and what a better way to celebrate it on this channel than without doing a top 10 countdown. So let's get started of my favorite matches from Sasha Banks. Let's get started at number 10 with Sasha at the Royal Rumble 2018. It was the first Royal Rumble that the women's division ever had, and she made her presence known, and she was one of the best performers that night. Even though she didn't win the match, because unfortunately, she learned the hard way that you can't trust the Bella, and Brie learned she can't trust her sister, which is some important notes to know for this year's Royal Rumble. But either way, she went the entire field. She just went across the entire field until she got eliminated for trusting the Bella Twins. However, nonetheless, great match. We saw some highlights for her eliminating Trish Stratus, the legend, and of course her best friend Bayley. No friends in the Rumble. Also, here's a bet I want to ask you off topic. Who do you think will eliminate who first? Do you think Dominic will eliminate Rey Mysterio, or do you think Rey will eliminate Dominic? Let me know in the comment section if you feel like answering that question. But for now, back to Sasha Banks and her performance at the Royal Rumble 2018. She didn't win the match, but the fact that she went the entire distance makes that a great highlight for her on my list. And bet that someday, some year before retirement, Sasha Banks will win a Royal Rumble. That is my bet. That is my prediction. I don't know if she's coming back this year because she has an injury, but someday she will win a Royal Rumble women's version. Going on to number 9, we have Sasha Banks defending her SmackDown Women's Championship against Carmella at TLC 2020. I didn't start commentating until February 2021. So this was just a couple of months before I got started. But either way, this was a great match. It kind of had me on the edge of my seat because they were really pushing Carmella at the time, and they really built her up as being pretty but aggressive. And we thought that she was going to bring out some good competition. There were moments that we thought that they were going to give it to Carmella to be a 2-time SmackDown Women's Championship winner, but Sasha retained in what was a very gamed match at TLC. Also, can someone please find a way, Daily Motion or anyone, please upload Randy Orton versus The Fiend in an Inferno match? I kind of liked it. At number 8, we have Sasha Banks versus Asuka at Survivor Series 2020. Now, as every Survivor Series is for the time being, since 2016, it has been like the original video games that we came up on during the Ruthless Aggression era, aka my childhood, and some of you can testify to that. Oh, testify! But either way, in the words of Devon, I'm mad at you, Bubba Ray. But either way, great showing from both women. And Sasha, this was a very important, to me, it was a very big win for Sasha because Sasha had never beaten Asuka. Asuka had came on the scene a couple of years back as the unbeatable woman, and that's the one thing that WWE did right, as far as bringing somebody from NXT to WWE. The other thing that WWE did right was, of course, the woman we're talking about today, Sasha Banks. But that match was great. I really recommend it. Sasha versus Asuka at Survivor Series 2020. And I know what you're thinking. You hate the way it ended because it ended up with the most devastating move ever, the roll up. But I still think it was a good match. At number 7, we have Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss before she went dark. And this was back when she was the goddess and Corey Graves was worshiping her. Corey Graves was the new age Jerry the King Lawler. He worshipped Alexa. Basically, he worshipped any blonde that was a heel. Alexa Bliss, Mandy. I wonder if he would still worship her now that she changed her hair. And now he married a blonde named Carmella. And don't call her a walking horror film like Byron did on Raw a couple of days ago. Last night, rather. Don't do that. But either way, this was a very great match. I really enjoyed this match between Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship back when Sasha was wearing red. And the reason this match was a great match and it was also very important was because it was a match of redemption for Sasha Banks. Because keep in mind, like Hulk Hogan in Toronto, Brooklyn was Sasha's bad luck city. It was just a city that brought Sasha bad luck. NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2015, loss. A great match against Bayley, by the way, but loss. The next night, Team BAD at SummerSlam, loss. 2016, Charlotte Flair versus Sasha Banks, loss. All of these matches taking place at SummerSlam or with the exception of NXT Brooklyn, in Brooklyn, New York. So SummerSlam had been going to Brooklyn and had made a habit of going to Brooklyn for a few years as a tradition for SummerSlam. And this match was very important. Sasha Banks would end that match and would win it by submission with the Banks statement making Alexa Bliss, back when she wasn't dark, tap out. And it was very important because she won that match in Brooklyn, New York. So unlike Hulk Hogan, Sasha was able to break her bad luck city curse. Number 6 is a match I would love to see again, but this was NXT TakeOver. I believe it was called NXT. Let me see. Yes, a Fatal 4-Way match at NXT TakeOver Rival, and this was a match, a Fatal 4-Way match between what would later become the 4 horsewomen of WWE's modern era. This includes Sasha Banks, of course, ours truly, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, before she was the man in Big Time Bex, and Sasha's best friend in real life, Bayley, and on screen until a couple of years back. But either way, it was an amazing match. We saw highlights from everyone, including Sasha Banks. And if I'm not mistaken, that match was her first NXT Women's Championship win. She told all of you, as she said, as she hoisted her championship high after making... No, she didn't make Charlotte Flair tap out, but she had her in the bank statement for a while before going for the roll-up pin, the move that everyone hates now, but she used the roll-up to win the match. And yes, she told all of you. After the match, Charlotte Flair would extend her hand in sportsmanship, but then give a hug and a shove, and Sasha would shove her back. But either way, great match from what is now known as the 4 Horsewomen. And that is the modern day Clique fun fact. You have, back in the day, you had your BSK crew, which featured one of my all-time favorites, The Undertaker, The Godfather, Rikishi, and Yokozuna, etc. And then you have your clique, which is Triple H, Kevin Nash, and Shawn Michaels. And in the modern era, you have your four horsewomen of WWE. And I know it was said that Ronda has her own horsewomen from MMA that came to WWE, which includes herself, Shayna Baszler, and Shayna's two running friends, whom you will respect or lose an arm. But either way, the WWE's four horsewomen were Sasha and the other three. However, it was a great match, and I hope to see those four in a match in the modern era, because it's something about watching a match from their early stages and seeing them in a more experienced manner, in a much more developed manner, because they are just totally developed and that both women have completely arrived. So that's my pick. NXT TakeOver Rival. Hope to see that match again. At number 5, this is another very important one. This next one at number 5 is the first ever women's elimination chamber match for the women's tag team championship, and it was the first ever women's tag team elimination match to crown the first ever women's tag team champions of WWE. It is a match that Sasha Banks would win with her best friend Bayley. And all of us, I don't know about you, but all of us, well, I guess me, were pulling for Sasha and Sasha and Bayley. See, that's what happens when you got 2/4 of the horsewomen that both letters start with a B. But either way, the first women's tag team champions of WWE, Sasha and Bayley, and that was because they won that match in 2019. It was amazing. I hope I didn't say 2018. I meant 2019. But either way, it was a great match. Even though Corey Graves annoyed us with his simpy ways as far as Mandy was concerned. And even Renee Young, who has her own podcast now, and Beth Phoenix, who was going to kick Maurice's butt at Royal Rumble, all of them were annoyed by Corey. Speaking of Corey, rumor has it that Corey might be coming back to action. What if we'll see him at the Royal Rumble? But either way, everyone was so annoyed with Corey worshiping Mandy. But either way, back to the action. The match was amazing. You got to check it out. If you haven't seen it, WWE still has this match on its channel on YouTube. You got to look it up. Moving on to number 4. At number 4, we have another historic match. Even though she didn't win it, it was still a historic match that she was a part of, and that was last year's WrestleMania, where Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair stole the show on night 1 of WrestleMania, I believe 37. WrestleMania 37, live from Jacksonville, Florida. Did you get Jacksonville, right? No, Tampa, dummy. Yes, Tampa. It was Tampa, dummy. But either way, in Tampa, Florida, night 1 of WrestleMania, it was raining, but the rain didn't stop the match. And this was their first ever African-American main event between Bianca and Sasha. One of the most historic matches that won an ESP award, if I said that correctly. That match won. That was an ESPYs, idiot. That was an ESPYs award. But either way, they won a sports award that year, Bianca and Sasha Banks, I'm speaking of, and it was amazing. You got to check it out. It was an amazing match. Unfortunately, Sasha, after that match, was out on injury because of the whip that we could hear all the way in Miami. God, that hurt. Sheesh. It sounded like a freaking bullwhip when Sasha got hit. It was amazing she was able to try and fight on through the match and fight on through the pain. But that's my pick. Number 3, we have Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks at NXT TakeOver Unstoppable 2015, early 2015, I believe. This match was amazing from both ends. We saw Sasha doing dives, which is something you see from her at times. But either way, it was a great match, and Sasha made the man tap out. So that means the man had to bow down to the boss. Moving on to number 2. Another fellow horsewoman turned rival, best friend Bayley. You can't have a Sasha Banks countdown without having Bayley. But I know what you're thinking, but I'm actually going to say that Sasha Banks versus Bayley Hell in a Cell is my top pick. Simply because this was a match that Sasha won. If you paid attention to my birthday tributes, which is a playlist I have officially started, by the way, you know that I try for the most part to include matches that wrestlers won because it's their birthday. No one wants to be reminded of how they lost on their birthday. But this was an important match for Sasha Banks to win because a couple of months prior, Bayley had turned on Sasha due to them losing the women's tag team championships, which they won for a second time. Bayley turned on Sasha and kept the chair as a souvenir. Sasha came back for revenge, and boy did she ever get her revenge. This match was very important, as if you're a Sasha fan, this match was also important because it was a Hell in a Cell match, and Sasha won the match, and it was a must-win for 2 reasons. Because the first 2 matches that the women's division had, Sasha was a part of all of them. And all 2 of them featured her fellow horsewomen allies. First Hell in a Cell match took place in Sasha's hometown of Boston, which Charlotte won. The next year was a match between Sasha and Becky Lynch, which Becky won. Bottom line, Sasha has never won a Hell in a Cell match until that night. Also, it was very important because, to my knowledge, Sasha never pinned Bayley. But sweet redemption that night. Not only did she win her first Hell in a Cell match, which exorcised one demon, defeated Bayley, which exorcised another, but she won the SmackDown Women's Championship. So blue for blue. Perfect. At number 1, the last horsewoman of WWE, Sasha Banks versus Charlotte Flair. On an episode of Raw, November 28, 2016, Falls Count Anywhere, from Charlotte's hometown of North Carolina, where she went one-on-one with Sasha in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And it was a match that was great. It was awesome. And Sasha won that match. It's ironic because Charlotte defeated Sasha in her hometown of Boston, and now Sasha returned the favor by making Charlotte Flair tap out in her hometown. So Sasha would win the Raw Women's Championship that night. Also, fun fact, she won a Raw Women's Championship in my former hometown of Atlanta on an episode of Raw. But to make matters even more greater for Sasha Banks, guess who congratulated her after her win? None other than Charlotte's own father, Ric Flair. Woo! Now, when your rival's father raises your hand and gives you a Rolex, from what I heard, that is something. So, what's your favorite Sasha Banks match? What is your favorite Sasha moment? Let me know in the comment section below. This is the Danny Show. That's all the time I got for you today, folks. See you Friday, if not sooner. Peace.